son was diagnosed with something much scarier than cancer. Mommy, my head hurts and I feel dizzy. Could I have imagined at that moment how terrifying those 5 words were? Like any other mother, I crouched down and said, "Let me see." He looked pale, his eyes unfocused. I tried not to panic and thought about what it could be. Nothing but the worst-case scenario came to mind. The night before, while he was playing, he seemed completely normal. What on earth could have happened? With great effort, trying not to scare him, I calmly told him to put on his shoes. 20 minutes later, we were at the doctor's office. After examining him, the doctor asked my son to wait in the reception area and called me in for a private conversation. "Is it serious?" I asked. The doctor looked at me in a way I'd never seen before, as if my question underestimated the gravity of the situation. "He has something very rare, a brain aneurysm that's about to rupture. We need to act immediately." Tears started welling up in my eyes. "Tell me he's going to be okay. I can't guarantee that," the doctor said. "The situation is extremely delicate. We need an MRI to better understand the location and size before proceeding with any treatment." Before we left, he gave me a note with the date and location of the scan. He also recommended that I keep my son calm and avoid any physical exertion until the procedure. The next morning, I went straight to the designated location and met Dr. Jasper Harris. "Hello," he said, looking at my son. He crouched down and asked, "What's your name?" My son answered, and the conversation irritated me. All I wanted was for the scan to be over so my son could return to his normal life. Dr. Harris took us to a room, gave my son a hospital gown, and began the scan. I waited in the lobby with a book in my hands, but I couldn't read. My mind was completely occupied with my son. Later, Dr. Harris entered the reception area with a grim expression. "Please come with me," he said, leading me to a room filled with medical monitors. He gestured to a chair near a large screen. "Please, have a seat." He showed me the imaging scans. "Oh my God!" I exclaimed, covering my mouth with my hand. The scans showed a massive aneurysm in a critical area of the brain. "We can't wait. We need to operate immediately," the doctor said. "I've never seen anything like this in a child of his age. It's extremely rare." I cried as he tried to comfort me by placing his hand on my shoulder. "Please," I begged, "save my son." That day, we couldn't proceed with the surgery due to complications caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. I felt grateful just to have secured the scan and tried to remain calm. At that moment, my son seemed unaware of what was happening, or at least that's what I thought. On the way home from the hospital, he suddenly asked from his car seat, "Mommy?" I glanced at his reflection in the mirror. "Yes? Grandma says when we die we go to heaven. Is that true?" I was speechless. What could I say? How had the thought of death entered his mind? Had the doctor said something? Was it just a coincidence? Or perhaps an instinct telling him how severe his condition was? A tear rolled down my cheek. "I don't know, sweetheart." Later, my son lay unconscious on the operating table. The surgeons prepared to address the aneurysm before it was too late. Before he was put under anesthesia, he started crying and made it clear he wanted me to stay with him during the surgery. "I want you to be with me," he said. It felt like he hadn't finished the sentence, as if he was trying to say, "I want you to be with me if I die." I stood in a corner of the operating room, wearing scrubs, gloves, a mask, and protective goggles. I looked down at my feet, waiting for the inevitable, wondering if my son would survive or become just a painful memory. My heart pounded so violently that it was hard to breathe, but I held myself together. I had to be strong for him, even as everything inside me was crumbling. The sounds of surgical instruments and the murmurs of the medical team felt distant, like echoes in the chaos of my mind. Time dragged on like an endless nightmare. Then, at last, Dr. Harris looked up and signaled to one of the nurses. She approached me and asked me to wait outside the room. Reluctantly, I released my son's hand, still unconscious, and left, feeling a lump in my throat I could barely contain. In the waiting room, I sat on a hard, cold chair, completely disconnected from the world around me. After almost 2 hours, Dr. Harris appeared. His expression was serious, which sent my heart racing again. "We managed to repair the aneurysm," he began, "but we found something very unusual. We need to talk." My body froze. I followed him to a private room, where he explained, "During the surgery, we noticed signs of inflammation and tissue damage that aren't typical for a regular aneurysm. We took a biopsy and sent it for urgent analysis. There's something else going on, and we need to identify it quickly." Before I could ask more, he continued, "In the meantime, we've started treatment to address a possible infection. We're facing a serious situation, but we'll do everything we can." My stomach churned. As if the aneurysm wasn't terrifying enough, now there was something else. something no one could explain. I felt a mixture of despair and helplessness unlike anything I'd ever experienced. All I wanted was for my son to be okay, but it seemed like the universe was determined to test us to the limit. 2 days later, Dr. Harris called me in again. This time, his face looked even more exhausted. He got straight to the point. We received the biopsy results. Your son is infected with Naegleria fowleri. It's an extremely rare and dangerous amoeba known for attacking the brain. He likely contracted it while swimming in contaminated water. My vision blurred, and for a moment, I thought I might faint. An amoeba? How was that even possible? I'd taken him to lakes and pools with the best of intentions, to let him have fun and just be a kid. How could something so innocent lead to this? What do we do now? How do we save my son? I asked, my voice trembling. The treatment is complex, and unfortunately, the survival rate is very low, he admitted. But we'll start immediately with a cocktail of aggressive medications, including an experimental anti-parasitic drug that has shown some success in similar cases. From that moment on, my life became a whirlwind of ICU visits, meetings with doctors, and sleepless nights at my son's bedside. He alternated between moments of lucidity and delirium, his small hand holding mine with less strength each day. The fever was relentless, and every seizure felt like it was ripping another piece of me apart. Meanwhile, my anger grew. Why hadn't anyone warned us about the dangers of this amoeba? Why weren't there more alerts or precautions at swimming sites? I wanted to blame anyone for my son's suffering. Days turned into weeks, and despite everyone's best efforts, his condition worsened. During a brief moment of clarity, he looked into my eyes with a weak smile and said, "I love you, Mommy." It felt like he understood that we might not have much time left. My heart shattered right there in those few words. The doctors did everything they could, but the infection had already caused irreversible damage. On the night my son passed away, I stayed by his side, holding his hand until his small body stopped fighting. The pain was unbearable, but something inside me shifted. I decided that no one else should have to endure what I went through. I channeled my grief into action, fighting to raise awareness about Naegleria fowleri and pushing for stricter regulations in public swimming areas. My son's death would not be in vain. Today, every victory I achieve in his memory feels like hearing his laughter again. Though he's no longer here, he lives on in every change I make, in every life I help save. But no accomplishment can ever fill the void he left behind. It's a struggle I carry every day, fueled by the eternal love I have for him. After my son passed away, my life was never the same again. The pain became a constant companion, a shadow that followed me everywhere I went. Losing a child is a wound that never truly heals, but over time, I realized I couldn't let that suffering consume me entirely. He deserved more than a broken mother. He deserved to have his memory honored in a meaningful way. The days immediately following his death were the hardest. I would get up, breathe, and function on autopilot, but every little detail around me screamed his absence. A forgotten shirt, a lost toy, even the trees in the park where we used to play seemed to carry his presence. The emptiness was unbearable. I couldn't stop thinking about how something so small, a microscopic amoeba, had caused such a devastating tragedy. I began obsessively reading about Naegleria fowleri. I wanted to understand everything, every detail, every study, every possible prevention and cure. The more I learned, the more I realized how neglected this disease was, and how many lives could be saved with greater awareness and medical advances. That's when the idea came to me. Maybe I could do more than mourn. Maybe I could fight back against what had taken my child. The idea of going back to school seemed absurd at first. I wasn't young anymore. I had left academics behind a long time ago, and my life had taken completely different paths. But something inside me burned like a flamey mix of determination and anger. I enrolled in a preparatory course and started studying again. It was difficult, harder than I could have imagined, but every time I thought about giving up, I remembered my son's eyes and the silent promise I had made to honor his memory. I spent countless nights studying, balancing my grief with my books. There were moments when I cried so much I could barely see the pages, but I kept going. After months of relentless effort, I passed the entrance exam for medical school. When I received the news, I cried as I hadn't since the day I lost my son, but this time they were tears of relief and hope. Starting medical school brought a whole new set of challenges. While many of my peers pursued medicine out of passion or ambition, I had a personal mission. Every class, every internship, every research opportunity was a chance to learn more and fight against this silent and devastating disease. During my years in school, I joined parasitology research groups, specialized in infectious diseases, and took part in projects focused on new treatments for Naegleria fowleri. My determination didn't go unnoticed. When I graduated, I was recognized as one of the top students in my class, not just for my grades, but for the passion I poured into every assignment and research project. On graduation day, as I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, I felt as though my son was there with me, watching me with that shy smile that always brightened my day. That moment wasn't just mine, it was ours. Today, I am a doctor specializing in parasitic and infectious diseases, with a focus on Naegleria fowleri. I work at a research center dedicated to developing better diagnostic methods and more effective treatments. Additionally, I dedicate part of my time to raising awareness, visiting schools, communities, and recreational areas to educate people about the risks and precautions that can save lives. Every time I help a family recognize a danger, every time I see a child treated in time, I feel like I am doing justice for my son. I can't change the past, but I can fight to ensure other mothers never have to endure what I went through. There are still days when the sadness is overwhelming, when the emptiness threatens to consume me. But now, instead of paralyzing me, it drives me. The love I feel for my son hasn't disappeared. It has transformed into a force that pushes me forward. In every child I save, in every life I touch, I see a piece of him. And that in some way brings me peace. My fight won't end anytime soon, but I know I'm where I'm meant to be. My son, even though he is no longer here physically, is the reason I became who I am today. And for him, I will keep fighting. Always. Yet even with that certainty, there's something that never fades. A part of me, the part that lost him, still lives in that day, in that moment when his small hand slipped from mine forever. No matter how much I try to fill my life with purpose, work, and accomplishments, nothing can erase the emptiness he left behind. Years have passed, and I've achieved far more than I ever imagined. I became a respected specialist, received awards, earned recognition for my work, and helped save lives. From the outside, it looks like I have everything, like I turned my grief into something extraordinary. But deep down, I know it isn't true. Everything I've built, every victory, has been a desperate attempt to escape the truth. I will never feel whole again. Sometimes during quiet nights after a long day of work, I sit alone in the living room, staring at the walls, thinking about him. What would his life be like now? He would have grown, changed, but he would still be my little boy. I close my eyes and try to imagine his voice, his smile. But as time goes on, those memories have begun to fade, and that devastates me. Realizing that even the memory of him might slip away is a pain I don't know how to endure. People around me think I'm an inspiration. They say I've overcome tragedy, that I've turned loss into strength. I smile and thank them, but deep down, I feel like I'm living a lie. I haven't overcome anything. My pain is still there, buried but alive, pulsing. Every day I wake up with the sense that something is missing, a piece of the puzzle of my life that will never fit again. Some nights, when the silence becomes unbearable, I go into the room where I keep his things. His toys, his books, his clothes are all there. I touch each item gently, as if they're pieces of him I can still hold on to. Sometimes his presence feels so vivid that I swear I can hear his laughter echoing through the house. But the next moment, reality hits me like a cold wave, reminding me he's no longer here. It's a renewed pain, as if I'm reliving his loss over and over again. There were times I tried to find solace. I buried myself in work, accepted invitations to give lectures, and committed to projects that demanded all my attention. But even in those moments, his absence was there, a constant shadow. On the occasions when I saw a child smiling, playing with their parents, my heart would ache. I knew those children were alive because of the work I did, but the joy was always accompanied by a weight. Why didn't he get the same chance? Even when new opportunities arose, friendships, relationships, I could never fully embrace them. It was as if a part of me was stuck in the past, unable to move forward. Friends would tell me I needed to allow myself to be happy again, but I no longer knew what happiness felt like. It seemed like something distant, something that existed in a world where he was still by my side. Today, I keep fighting, keep helping whoever I can. But if I'm honest with myself, I know I will never feel whole again. My son was the light of my life, and without him, everything seems dimmer, emptier. No matter how much I've turned my pain into something meaningful, it's still there, a silent companion that never leaves me. Maybe this is all I can be now, someone who fights, someone who tries, but who, deep down, will always feel like something is missing. I will continue my journey, I will keep honoring his memory, but I know the void he left will never be filled. And, in some way, I think I've learned to accept that. Some wounds don't heal, they simply become part of who we are.